It's officially stewardshipcalling.com on Ancient Faith Radio, and the entire Ancient Faith Radio team is here with us in Los Angeles at the annual meeting of the Assembly of Canonical Orthodox Bishops, where we are gathered together to really do so much work for Orthodox unity. And finally, after years and years of begging, I have the opportunity to have on live with me my Metropolitan, the man that I serve all day, every day, and from the day he came down the Metropolis of Atlanta. This is Metropolitan Alexios, the presiding hierarch, the Metropolitan of the Greek Orthodox Metropolis of Atlanta.
First of all, I would like to thank God for having you in our metropolis, and of course now in the Archdiocese, that you are trying to help, to assist, and to provide the means for the clergymen, for the bishops, and also for the church. Because I don't know if we have more people or many people like yourselves that really helps us tremendously to communicate with the people and to spread the word of our Lord Jesus Christ. God bless you.
No, God, all glory to God, Your Eminence, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. I've said it a lot of times, the greatest gift you can ever give anybody is the opportunity to serve them, to do something good for someone else, and that's exactly what the Lord has called us to do, and you do that probably better than anybody.
That's good for you to say, but it's a blessing for us, the bishops and the clergymen, to have laymen that they want to help, to assist, and to provide the means by using their talents and, of course, their knowledge to communicate and to spread the word of our Lord.
Well, you're very good at doing that, and you're also very good at asking for people to join you on the journey and whatnot. Now, speaking of the journey, you have probably one of the most fascinating journeys of your life to the priesthood and then ultimately to the episcopacy. Share with everybody a little bit about your journey from a young man and how you got to where you got to.
I don't know what really is the meaning of journey, because when we are servant, we have been called just to serve. So it does not matter if you are serving in Alaska or in California or in Atlanta, Georgia. Just we remain servants, and I'm very thankful to God for her giving the opportunity to serve in different places, but all the time is with a different capacity, with the same capacity as a clergyman,
Right.
priest, and later on bishop and a metropolitan. Thank God for that.
But you started at a young age on Mount Athos.
Yes, it was the providence of our God to go to Mount Athos. I didn't plan to go to Mount Athos, but my younger brother went as a student there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Okay.
he's the third one. He's practiced psychology now in Germany. But we're 7 children in my family, 5 boys, 2 girls, and I'm the oldest. And somehow there is a Greek tradition that the oldest one is taking care of the others.
Right.
So when my brother went to Mount Athos, he wrote the first letter after 2 months. I remember it was the beginning of October. And he was complaining about the life there.
It was too harsh for him? Or?
Very harsh, because there is no time to play or to go out or to visit people. They are studying there. In the morning they have classes. In the afternoon they have to study in the dormitory. And they go just 1 hour per day out to play.
Okay.
And I sympathize for him. So I said to my father, I'm going to be with Taki. He said, no, you are doing very well here. And then after a week I went again, and then my father became angry and said he was thinking that I want to escape.
Oh, you were trying to get out of working there. Okay.
Yes, but really I wanted to go to be with my brother. Mm-hmm. And that's how I went to Mount Athos, and then I clicked myself there.
And you were there how long now?
I was there for several years as a student in the beginning, right. And where I was studying. I became friend with some students, classmates, but they were monks in the monastery. Mm-hmm. And then I started visiting the monastery little by little. I felt comfortable and I became a monk in that monastery.
Yeah. And I'll never forget one time you called me and you said, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but come here to have lunch at the diocese. Back then it was, and you said, because there's monks from Mount Athos coming and we're going to show them hospitality. And they weren't coming to Atlanta, they were going somewhere else, but they stopped to visit you.
Yes.
And the monastery there of Atopedia is still very much connected with you.
I believe I am trying to be connected with the monastery because the monastery remains there,
Right.
the monks remain there, and so on and so forth. When I was there years ago in the late 60s, beginning of 70s, there were just few monks,
Hmm.
and most of them, they were old people. We were only 3 people that they were in 20s.
Okay.
The rest, they were, 60s and 70s. There was not perhaps communication.
Right.
That was the reason, unconsciously, that I left from there. And then I came to Patras and I became a deacon of the Metropolitan there.
Right.
But I never lost the connection
Right.
and the communication with the monks there. And of course, today, Monastery of Atopedi has the most monks there. There are 130.
150 monks.
130.
Right.
And they have also some convents, and so it's a beautiful place there.
Right. Including a young man that you recruited from our community and stuff like that.
Yes, actually, he had the spirit and wanted there, and thank God for him.
Yeah, he's wonderful, wonderful young man. So you go from Mount Athos and you go Patras, which is kind of where your family is from, or where your family has a home now and stuff like that.
Yes, and somehow the Metropolitan liked me, and he asked me to become his archdeacon, and I was served as a deacon 7 years altogether.
7 years as a deacon.
And of course, when I was student in Athens University, I was 2 years, the first 2 years deacon, and then I became a priest, and I still served the monastery in Patras, and of course, I was still serving the Metropolitan there because he was an old man, and he wanted assistance, and no matter what I was doing all the time is I found myself around him, especially in the celebrations of the Divine Liturgy and consecrations of the churches and AoB.
Right, but then you come to the United States, and everything
then
changes.
I came again to the United States to study.
Right.
And somehow I grew myself here.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but.
And of all places in the United States, you spent a lot of time in New York, right?
Yes, many, many years in New York, 17 altogether. But I served in Vermont when I came, and I studied up there to learn their language, and later on, in Boston University. And then I went back to Greece. And somehow, after a year, I came back to the United States, and thank God that Archbishop Diakonia was then, loved me, and he kept me close to him.
Right.
In the beginning of Brooklyn for 12 months, and later on in Astoria for 10 years. Then I became a bishop there, and then the rest is a story.
Yeah, every time, before I even actually met you in person and stuff like that, everybody would say, you need to meet the Bishop of Astoria. And I said, I didn't know we had a diocese in Astoria, New York. Said, we have our own bishop in Astoria. That's what they called you, the Bishop of Astoria.
Yes, that's true, that's true. And I was afraid because I didn't want the Archbishop to think that I'm great in diocese in his own Metropolis.
Great, in the shadow of the archdiocese, there you are creating your own fiefdom.
But thank God I had a wonderful time serving the people. And of course, you have to understand, we the Orthodox Christians were very close to the church if we want to be faithful.
Right.
Because we have some people that they have forgotten that exists God and they have a church and so forth. And we have to recruit them. It's our job. But thank God we have many people, and I'm very thankful to God, and I work with them in Astoria.
Well, we were blessed when you were finally appointed as the then bishop of the Diocese of Atlanta, and then, of course, ultimately as Metropolitan Metropolis of Atlanta.
Yes, yeah.
And you've been there now how long?
Since 1997.
Yeah.
How many years?
That's a long time. That's just a good long time over there.
Yeah.
When you start to think about the impact, it's a little bit over a quarter of a century, the amount of the impact that you've had on our metropolis in so many ways, it's pretty amazing. But in that quarter of a century or so, what are some of the highlights that stick out in your mind?
Thus, Vasily, is very difficult to pick up something because when you are servant, you have to remain servant. And there is no way of thinking that I can serve you in this way, but not in that way. Of course, as a human beings, sometimes willing to feel comfortable with certain things or services. But I believe I'm trying to remain servant, no matter if I'm liturgizing, or I'm speaking to the people, or I'm communicating with the people, or I'm in the meeting, just I want to serve the people. And that's what I'm trying to think and to control myself, not go away of that kind of thinking.
Well, your exercise of servant leadership, and that's the word we use, and it was a theory that was created by Professor Greenleaf in the 60s and 70s in the United States, and it was a whole new model of leadership, right? They didn't really think of that. In the old days, they used to think there was a leader at the top and he made orders and everybody followed. Servant leadership reversed that and made it kind of the people at the top and the servant at the bottom. And you've been a perfect role model of that, but I don't know if I'm going to tell you a story that maybe you don't know. It was very early on in your episcopacy in Atlanta, and after I'd gotten used to you. And we were at an event, and there was a luncheon being served, kind of a buffet luncheon. And you do what you always did. You went behind the buffet line and started serving the food. And one of the leaders of that parish came up to me and he said, we need to get, back then it was your grace, we need to get his grace away from the food line so that we can serve him. And I said, you don't understand. Good luck. You're not going to get him away from the food line. That's where his heart belongs. And you continue that tradition to this day, and I just think it's so endearing.
That's a wonderful thing that we have noticed. But the reality is that when you are serving the others, you eat less.
Oh, is that? So it's a dietary strategy.
And that is the secret, that it's wonderful to serve the others because you are eating less.
Well, I don't think that's, I'm sure maybe that's part of it, but I know the real reason why you do it is because it gives you an opportunity to look every one of the faithful in the line in the eye and to thank them and to be there with them and to share personal time with them.
Thank you very much. I have not analyzed myself why I'm doing that. But the thing is, we are servants, and we should never forget that thing. Constantly we have to be servants. We are serving the churches, no matter if we are deacons, priests, or bishops, or a episcopacy, or whatever, we are servants. And thank God that He is the one that helps me to remain and to focus, to serve.
Well, you're like I said, amongst the many hierarchs we have that are excellent servant leaders, I think you're clearly in the top tier, and I know you don't like to hear say that. Okay, there's an elephant in the room, as they say. There's something very uncomfortable in the room between you and me that we have to put out there so that everybody understands. There was a time when you approached a few of us in kind of the executive committee of the diocese and with an idea. And I'm confessing, of course, as I've confessed to you many times that when you said that, and I was thinking about what you were proposing, I honestly thought that was the craziest idea I had ever heard. And because I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut, I think I said something like that. I said, Your Eminence, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. It will never work. And now, many decades later, as we look at the Diakonia Retreat Center, this enormously beautiful place of God, I have to publicly confess to the world how wrong I was and how right you were in that you saw 210 acres of just open land and you saw it for something so much bigger than I could ever conceive of. So tell the story of the Diakonia Retreat Center.
First of all, you have used the word servant. When you are a servant and you believe that you are a servant, you should think that we have never accomplished anything because you are just servant. You are serving or working for somebody else, and that is our Lord Jesus Christ. And that's how I'm facing, that's how I'm seeing, and that is something natural. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not thinking in such a way, although I'm speaking in such a way. And that's how happened that thing. That was from God. It was a miracle. I was not planning to have a property up there for our metropolis, but it happens. I don't know how it happened. I'm not good in collecting money or asking people for money, but we raised almost $750,000 just in 15 minutes. And when you see these things, you don't have to be smart to see that God is involved.
Yeah.
And we have to give the credit to God for what has been happening to our metropolis and also to Diakonia Retreat Center, which is a jewel, I believe, for our metropolis.
So it's 210 acres, of which about 40 or 50 are developed.
Yeah.
It's in the foothills of the South Carolina, right across
Yes.
the Georgia border, very near Clemson University, surrounded by some beautiful lakes, some of the most beautiful pieces of nature. And of that 50 or so acres that are developed, 3 dormitories now that each hold 150 people, a dining hall. How many people can fit in your dining hall? It's amazing.
I mean, it's not that big that we want to be, but it fits around 110, 120 people,
Yeah.
the dining hall. But it's a blessing again. It's a blessing. You have to understand that our metropolis, the largest metropolis, as far as the population, or one of the largest metropolises of the Greek Orthodox Orthodoxes. And we needed to have place for our people, especially for our youth.
Yeah.
We were renting spaces, if I can say,
Yeah.
and dormitories of our metropolises, of our communities, of our place, whatever, for the summer camp. And then we had around 60, 70 kids. Now we have 5 weeks with more than 120 kids every week.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing. And besides that, we have the Sunday school that goes there. We have the young adults that are going there. We have the Philoptochos that's going there. We have the parish council sometimes that are coming there for meetings. We have so many other ministries that we have created because we have spaces.
Yeah, and I'll never forget the first time I was there, I think for an Archon retreat that you had. And as soon as I got there, I'd been there many times before, but really for a retreat, my first instinct was to complain that my cell phone wasn't working. And you smiled the way you just smiled at me right now. And it's like, yeah, God's got this plan. It's a retreat. So leave all that stuff behind you there, right? It's an incredible.
This is something that we're practicing with our kids when they're coming there for summer camp. We have to collect their cell phones. No cell phone. They have to devote themselves 24 hours per day to each one, to each other.
Right.
Become friends, to be friends.
Right. Beautiful lake, fishing, boating, swimming, dorms, walking trails, soccer fields, basketball fields. But then another idea you had. You said, how can we have a retreat center without having a chapel?
There is a miracle, other than Vasily. That's a miracle. We're thinking to build a chapel.
Right, a chapel. Now,
chapel means, 40, 50, 60 people.
A small building.
Exact, small building, simple building, so on
Right.
and so forth. I don't know what happened. God provided the architect.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. Just he is from Greece, and I met him in the United States.
Right.
So I asked him, and took him more than a year. I was complaining, what is taking so long to give us, the blueprint and whatever.
For a little chapel. I mean, how hard is that? I mean, I could do that.
And they were building the church there. By the way, the church that has been built there has been built from God. It's concrete with cement from the bottom to the top. It didn't cost too much money. I don't know how.
Well, you know exactly how.
I don't know.
You're too humble to say it, but as an insider, I know you asked, begged, pled, contributed, got people from Greece, vendors, builders, contractors, resources. You were the general manager of this beautiful.
I didn't feel, and you are the outsider, and you says, and you observe these things, but I didn't feel, and I still don't feel, it's a miracle. And again, we were building a chapel, and now it has become a cathedral.
It is a cathedral. I mean,
know,
the whole downstairs, which when you first told me that we were going to have a basement, I thought, okay, I know what a basement looks like. This is not a basement. It's tall ceilings, beautiful bookcases. It has its own little chapel and altar in the front there, a big meeting area. That's a basement?
Again, it's a miracle. I will share with you a story. Now we had finished the basement. Actually, it's not the basement, it's the first floor.
It is the first floor.
And now we are, and it's tall. It's 16 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, it's incredible.
And now we have the scaffolding for the actual church.
Right.
So now I am with a friend of mine in the scaffolding, is the top of the
Right.
of the basement, so to say. And he said, "This is a big church." And I start screaming at him, "How come that's a chapel?" Because really I couldn't vision, and I have never seen the numbers on the top of the papers,
Right.
of the schedule, of
Right.
the blueprints,
Diagram.
whatever, and when they took out the scaffolding, I went there one day, and I remember it was after Easter. And I start chanting Christos Anesti. And I look up and I said, "What's that?" I start crying.
Yeah. Yeah. The echoes, the
Yes,
echoes in a good way, not just like cavernous echoes, right? I mean,
it's a baby. It's a gift from God. That's the answer.
It is true. Do you know? You should probably know. I don't know. I saw the plans, but I'm not good this way. Do you know from the ground floor to the top of the dome how tall that is on the inside?
It's 62 feet.
62 feet. And like Hagia Sophia, there's multiple domes on either ends of it and sides of it and things of that nature.
I mean, it has the main dome.
Right.
And perhaps because of that, we have acoustics inside.
Incredible.
And the acoustics is incredible. You go there, you speak in one side, and everybody can hear you.
Yeah.
And still, we don't have microphones and speakers, nothing.
So that's the next project, and we need to get that sound system installed over there. But I'll tell you, the first time that, and I won't name who it was, but it was a psalter. The first time one of our psaltists went up there and participated in a liturgy that you're hosting up there, he sends me an audio recording of it. And he didn't tell me where. And I said, "Where is this?" And he said, it's at the Panagia Chapel of the Diakonia Center. Now, there's the other part of the story that I want you to share with everybody, because you've repeatedly said it's a miracle, and I'm sure it must be, but there was some incredible, incredible activity. And why do we call it the Panagia Chapel, and how is that chapel blessed in that way?
Again, it's an answer that I don't have an answer. Just we were asking people to help us, and now it's the time that we have to name the church, the chapel, whatever you call, to give a name. So I was praying, and finally say, "Wait a minute, let's see who has given the most of the money." And it happens that he was Panagiotis. And that's how we named. But I believe it was a miracle, because I have special connection with Panagia.
Right.
And by naming that thing, we make decision that we have to celebrate up there all the feast days of Panagia, like 15 of August, like the Dormition, like the Nativity and everything. And that's how that came up, without planning, without anything.
And then the icon.
And then the icon. The icon, you means
from Manathos.
Yes, that is again a gift. It's a miracle with this chapel constantly. I went to Monathos. I'm going there every year, every summer, because I want not to lose the connection with. Because for me, that's my home. Right. That's my family, if I can say.
That's your energy source. You plug in there, and you just.
There are summers that I'm going to Greece. I have not visited my village, but I have never missed to visit, Vatopedi, the monastery over there. And of course there were discussion about the things, about the ministries, about this and that, and so on, about personal lives. And I told them that we are building a chapel there. And he said, "We are going to donate to you an icon, the Panagia Vimatarisa." And of course I thanked them. And then I started thinking, because the monastery of Vatopedi, we have 6 Panagias with a name like Vimatarisa, like now I forget the name.
Yeah, that's okay.
And later on, as I was thinking about Vimatarisa, not Portaitisa, not this, not that, I discovered that when I was in Monathos, in monastery, I was serving the Holy Altar. And the Panagia that we had in the Holy Altar, it was the Vimatarisa. And there was tradition that we have to have a candle lit 24 hours per day.
Right.
And as a child, because I was 16 years old in Monathos, and now I'm 19 in serving in the Holy Altar as a sexton there, as a person that's responsible for the things in the Holy Altar, and I was constantly careful not to let the candle to blow out, to go out, and maybe that's the miracle, or that is the gift, or that is something that the Panagia